Hi, I'm Shannon. I'm a writer and a film creator from Sydney, Australia. Recently, I was invited to trek across the Kosciuszko National Park, the largest national park in New South Wales. We'd be north of the Kosciuszko Ranges. It would take several days and would be on horses. Now, the organiser of the group asked me if I'd be interested in coming along and perhaps capture their story as to why we'd be on horses in this wonderful wilderness for several days. I gave it some serious consideration, but I knew if I was to make this film for these people with the sincerity and the respect it deserved, then I knew I'd have to immerse myself completely into their lives for the whole several days. So do you know what? I packed up some camping gear, I headed out into the country, and I think I captured something quite magical. But firstly, let's meet the group. Here's Donna. She lives for horse riding, loves the country, full of life, with a cheeky smile. Hang around, I'll introduce you to her later. Here's Rob, affectionately known as Carrot. He's one funny man, dry sense of humour and a real character to have around a campfire. This is Karen, also a lover of horses, and she's good mates with Donna. She told me that doing this ride was a bucket list thing for her. I was glad to be here to see her tick it off her list. And meet Victor and Dorina, a couple from Hungary joining us on this 5-day trek. It was great to have them on this trip, sharing their yarns about how things are back in Europe and doing their best to understand our Aussie humour. And here's Dick, the organiser of the ride, the real deal, a true bushman, but more on him later. Oh yeah, and there's me, just doing what I do, droning, writing and filming all things Australia, and loving every single minute of being out here. Day 1. It was showtime. Time for me to meet everyone and get acquainted with the group. I learnt very quickly that we'd eat rather well on our trek. My favourite too, a roast dinner.
Nice and fast on the way and come back to gravy. Actually, that's
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Kerry.
I'm gonna do this.
But back to Dick and Donna. Their fathers, Douglas Roberts, affectionately known as Butch, and Evan Imlay, were mates. And they both spent their lives among these very hills, living, working, and having families. They've both passed away now, and it seemed fitting to have spread their ashes here several years ago across the lands that they loved. So that's why we're here. This is a memorial ride for Butch and Evan. Carrot, Victor and I would be driving the 3 support vehicles for the week, carrying hay bales, horse rugs, camping equipment, food and water, and lots of cold beer. So I had an important job. To be with a small group of people and journey deep into the bush, along a country road, the smell of the fields all engulfing your senses, there was a great euphoria about it all. I love the simplicity in this landscape and its purity, the silence. After about 2 hours of riding, we were completely surrounded by nature, with nothing ahead of us except the wilderness. And we had this whole place to ourselves, and it was just amazing.
Whoa. She's gnarly.
Sitting around the campfire, one of the crew said, "This sure beats real life." I said, "I believe this is real life. This is how our descendants once lived before society went and got itself all so complicated." It grows more and more obvious now, being out here in pure escapism. It dawned on me why our socialising at night was just so bloody good. Nobody had a drop of phone service, so it was just us. And I can't tell you how refreshing that really is. Victor had never heard of the Australian beer Tooheys New, so he swapped me a pint of Guinness for a can of Tooheys.
Put that in your
I don't know. I think I may have ripped poor Victor off.
That's the most common beer in Australia.
We ate curried sausages that Rob made, probably drank too much, and I know this might sound cliche, but we listened to Slim Dusty songs all night. Songs that were recorded decades ago. But as I listened, I realised that Slim was a man before his time. His lyrics addressed concerns about the Australian way, where we've been and where we're heading. Political and social issues out here in the bush that people today would do well to learn about. As for us, as a crew, the following morning, I felt we were all working as a great team. And come 8 a.m, it was time to saddle up. arrived early at tonight's campsite, and while we were waiting for the horse crew to arrive, I was on my own, so I took the opportunity to walk through this turn-of-the-century drover's cabin, and what a sight to behold. I pictured myself back in the early 1900s. Would I have thrived as a drover, or would I have hated it? I don't know. One thing's for sure, I was really impressed at the preservation of these cabins through the snowy ranges. Dick and the group, still on horseback, called us over the radio. The CB crackled into life as he asked could we drive out and meet them on the trail, as a round of cold beers would be nice. Victor and I took the ute and made our way out to find them, telling each other jokes as we bumped along that old dusty road. I think Victor was developing the Australian sense of humour quite well. In his thick Hungarian accent, he asked me, "What did the shark say to the other shark in the middle of the desert?" "Mate, I think we're lost." Victor grinned at me as he knew his Aussie delivery was on point. We found the crew and dispensed cold beer each like we were a Mr. Whippy van serving ice cream in the streets on a hot day. I bet that beer didn't touch the sides as it washed away their hot, dusty throats. Once we were all back at camp, all of us were happy to see some tucker. But nobody was more pleased to see us than the local wildlife.
I think today was bigger than yesterday, believe it or not. Yeah, terrain-wise and
feeling
fitness. I reckon the last 20 minutes, yes, I did.
You're still in good shape.
Yeah, I'm ready for I'm ready for a day off, and then we'll go again. Sounds good.
But before our day was done, Carrot wanted to show us something extra special. We arrived at the Blue Waterholes. Whilst it was impressive, I thought I'd send the drone up to see what I could see. And what I saw was this huge gorge made of limestone, and it was pretty spectacular.
Jeez. You know, well, that's a pretty damn good effort.
There we go, that's enough.
Back at camp, Victor was demonstrating his powerful wood chopping skills.
Well, I love work. I can stand for hours and watch someone else doing it.
You missed that one.
Dangerous.
But not to be outdone, Dorina took that block splitter and showed us all that she packed a very powerful punch for a little lady.
Haha.
Tops.
That night, Dick shared one of his poems about his late father, and we listened as he and Donna reminisced about Butch and Evan.
Butcher's ashes were laid to rest and the stories all still thrill. From chasing a brumbian after 1 or 2 more grogs, how you nearly caught him if it wasn't for the bloody bogs. So brush the cobwebs off your saddles and grease your riding gear. It's the one trip in October that many will come to fear. It's the chance of a late snowfall or the dreary winter rain. There's some things in the mountains that will always stay the same. Cheers, Butch!
And here's to the Big E.
The next day, I felt that the tone of the conversation went to another level of seriousness. I listened carefully as the crew discussed current issues with the closures of the national parks by the state government. I found myself flicking through a book written by Dick on bush poetry and a book on issues within Kosciuszko National Park. Closures concern country people, and they formed the Snowy Mountains Bush Users Group 28 years ago. It made me kind of depressed in a way. I wonder if my own kids and their kids will ever have that same opportunity as I had. Your birthright to ride a horse through the Australian wilderness, to explore and be at one with nature. Or will this all soon be under lock and key and never reopened? Here is where I thought it was time to show you everybody. And let's call them the voices of the bush.
I've been going to do the trip with the Roberts boys for about 5 years now. This year was my year to do it. It was extra special because I got to do the ride with the Roberts boys and for Butch, and we come up here and then we celebrated for Evan. So it was nice to tie it all in, to have 2 good bushmen that love the bush and love horses and the lifestyle it provided. So that was nice to share that with people that were like-minded, that had fathers that liked to do the same thing. And really we need to embrace our bush and our backyard, because that's what it is. It's our own backyard. We don't appreciate it until someone starts taking it away from us, and now we all start to feel that we're losing touch, we're getting blocked out of places. There's all sorts of talk of where we're going with our bush and our backyard, and I hope that is not going to happen and that we get to use this beautiful, beautiful national park.
Wouldn't it? You should have done it. Donna, you're a horsewoman. It's in your blood.
The bush ride was great for me in the fact that I got to bring my best friend, who has never done this before, and 2 friends of mine that I've known for about 6 years now from Hungary, that they've never done anything like this. So for watching them go through this experience and seeing them conquer all those fears, and because, you know, even though it was a great trip, there's always something that challenges us along the way, and to see them do that and conquer that, and how that made them feel when we rode into camp, was amazing to watch. To take that away from people and not be able to utilise that would be a shame. Our world seems to be getting smaller and smaller, not bigger and bigger. So as long as I've known my dad, he's always said to me that if we don't look after our bush, we're going to lose our bush. And here we are, over 20 years later, and we're having these discussions. And he wanted to keep the bush open and keep people's awareness of how beautiful this place was, because of the generations coming through. He wanted me to ride in the bush. He wanted my children to ride in the bush. We want all our families to enjoy it, and that's what we're trying to keep alive. We're trying to keep alive that all the people who want to use the bush, that it's here for generations to use. And that was my dad's legacy, and that's what I'm working for my children, and keep fighting for that to be. The trip was fantastic. I had myself convinced it was going to be really tough going, but I found the ride was great, the horses were great, the company was fantastic. The support vehicles were unreal, and the people that drove those. And the countryside, Dick said it'd change as we went up in altitude, and it certainly did. And every time it changed, it was spectacular. The most memorable and probably the most touching was when I rode into camp and the family was here.
As a little girl, I have always wanted to ride up in the mountains. I've watched everyone else do it. My friend Donna asked me to go on this ride, and I felt very honoured and very lucky because of what the ride represents, which is Butch Roberts, Evan Imlay, and Evan Imlay, I've known since I was a little kid. Butch Roberts, I met a couple of times when I was a wards person at the hospital. I never, ever, ever in my life thought that I would do something like this, and I feel very honoured. I feel very honoured to actually do this ride, and because I knew her dad. I knew her dad before I even knew Donna. He was a friend of the family's. It's all fallen into place, and I have the opportunity, and I've already seen Brumbies. I just feel so lucky to experience this.
The wildlife up here is not like it was back when I was 15 or 16. Just not here. They haven't really locked us out yet, but they're working on getting rid of us. I think one of the biggest reasons what they think, if they get rid of the Brumby, they'll get rid of the horse riders. And I think that's a big thing behind the Brumbies, and give us some access back on some of the trails. We don't want to have to ride through the bush, but give us some of the trails going through the wilderness areas, like coming up that boundary road. We used to drive utes to Broken Cart once. You're never going to get a two-wheel drive ute, a holding ute in there anymore.
So what was the best part of the trip?
The company. And the company. Just driving through, taking our times and taking things in. It was wonderful.
Hi, I'm Derek, Donna's husband, Evan's son-in-law. We've been coming here since I've been about 15. Thanks to Evan and all the older guys, this was a tradition. We learnt to bring up horses, get educated more on how to ride them, see all the bush. To be able to see the Brumbies, well, as a kid, that blew my mind away, which made us keep wanting to come back. We've had children, we now have grandchildren, and they all love the bush. It's not just about the riding, like we have a lot of people come up and visit, come for the day, have lunch. There can be up to 50 or 60 people in our groups that come, share the bush with us, always have stories to tell. I'd like to think that when my time's up, I'd like my ashes to be scattered all through this place, because we just absolutely love it and adore it. We want it to keep going through all our families, and as everyone does. Yeah.
I'm Taylor. I'm Evan's granddaughter and Donna's daughter. I have 2 kids, and we love coming to the bush. It's a second home. We love coming riding. We always come up for a tradition for my grandfather's birthday, and I want my kids to be able to come up here and ride, and my grandchildren to be able to come up and ride. We just love it up here. It's nothing like coming up here and riding, seeing Brumbies, seeing other wildlife that you don't get to see on the farms. It's beautiful.
Butcher's ashes was spread all the way over on that trail towards the timber, and that was done by Dick, his eldest son. I don't know exactly where Evans was spread. Dick, he spread them on his own horse. He just sort of rode out on the trail.
The closures of the national parks, what would that mean to you?
Oh, mate, bloody, it'd destroy me, I've been associated with the high country since I was 5-year-old as a kid.
So I'm Donna's son, Evan's grandson, and we've been coming up here for years. It's kind of a generational thing. My mother and my father bring us up here, now my sister and her little family. We just come up here and ride some young horses, and it's the way of doing it, way of life up here, and it's a different story when you get up here. Like, not many people get to come and enjoy it and get to do this type of thing, and it's pretty awesome, until you do it, you don't know what it's about, and it's a good way of life.
So what's it mean to you girls, just being up here?
On top of the world. It means like everything to me, and just the smell, just how silent it is. How fresh the water is after you're riding your horse, or when you're riding your horse, get on your belly and get a good drink of the water. I love how fresh the water is, and just how, just no water like it.
I've been doing the trip now. I instigated the trip 6 years ago when my father, Butch Roberts, died, and And myself and my oldest brother Jason, we packed his ashes from Argalong all the way back up here to Bullock's Hill, and neither of us had packed before. We'd done a hell of a lot of riding in the bush and knew the bush pretty well from our childhood, but neither of us had never packed, so it was definitely an interesting journey. We learnt a lot on that trip, but we ultimately got the ashes back up to Bullock's Hill with both of us alive and the horses alive, and it was a journey. And every year we try to do the same thing. There's obviously a few years we've missed along the way, COVID and amongst other things, but the most interesting thing about doing the trip is there's new people coming every time, and we're able to introduce them to a bit of our way of life, I suppose, and something that we love, but to also open up their eyes about our national park, our bush, and encouraging them to recognise the importance of standing up and being able to save it. It's slowly getting worse every year with blackberries and weeds, and roads are in a terrible state. You can't access most areas with roads, and just the slow sort of march of locking down. Like, there have been wilderness areas up here for over 20 years now, which cover, I'm only guessing, probably 60% of the park. But there's no doubt there's more coming, and we're just slowly getting pushed out. But the ride itself, where else in the world would you want to be? It's a great part of Australia. It's a beautiful part of Australia. It's one of those parts of Australia that has a lot of history, a lot of culture. It's not just our culture, but cultures that came before our culture. And we need to keep it alive by continue doing what we're doing, because if we don't, we lose it. So we've got to continue doing the ride. One of the best parts of the trips, most of us on the trip were good mates before we even left. Like doing the ride with Donna this year. I've known Donna since I was a kid, and Donna was doing the ride for her father. It's just the same as I'm doing it for mine, but we're both doing it together. But the array of people on the ride, I've known Carrot since I was a kid, and Shannon coming to take all these memories for us and keep all these memories, but Victor and Darina from Hungary and Karen. But most important thing is, it's a challenge. I'm asking people to hop on a horse, take care of their horse, and travel for 100 kilometres, climbing great elevations every day, and it is challenging, especially if you're not used to doing it. It's challenging, and what you find when you put the right group of people together to do something like this is, it doesn't matter how tough the day was, the humour at the end of the day generally takes over and fixes everything, you know what I mean? And trust me, on this trip, and I can't tell you all the secrets, but there was a lot of funny things and a lot of stories come up, and a lot of memories that'll stay, and let's hope we can continue doing that in years to come.
So we woke up this morning to really crappy weather. Wind, rain, my tent leaked. All the fun stuff when you're camping. So we're weighing up our options today, whether we want to pack up camp and kick on in the rain, or just hold out and hope it passes. Not sure yet. Looks a bit settled into me, but we'll see how we go. Well, the rain eased up, we got lucky. We packed all our belongings up, albeit wet, very wet. But it was a pretty good show, worked as a team, and it's just before 11 AM on day 4. We're going to a place tonight called Mosquito Creek. Let's hope the creek hasn't got that many mosquitoes. The end of our trek was here. The vibe in the camp this morning felt different, to be honest. We all knew that this was it. It was our home run. We were happy, proud. We did it. I imagine by now they all felt at one with that horse and completely in sync with nature and in complete control of that animal. Crossing valleys, creeks, slogging it out for miles in the dust and the wind. They'd be exhausted. I mean, let's face it, I don't know anybody that would survive 5 hours in the saddle, let alone 5 whole days. We saw them off, and Carrot, Victor and I drove into the valley where we knew that they'd appear for their last leg of the journey. We wanted to be there for them, kind of like a welcoming home really. The three of us sat by the creek and we waited. And eventually, they appeared on the horizon. Welcome home. There's an old saying, lightning never strikes twice in a bottle. With that analogy, then maybe what we had just captured was quite magical indeed. Do you know, there's not that many moments in your life where that particular moment is prolific, where you stop and look at where you are and what's happening around you. And you know that this is one of those moments that you look back on for the rest of your life and remember it as a time that probably changed your views on things forever. As for me, I've always loved the Australian wilderness. I always will. And I'm thankful just to be who I am, and that is just being an ordinary Australian in this extraordinary country. We're all out here back to the only thing that genuinely keeps us happy, and that is our grassroots. And I get it. It's our heritage out here. As I travelled home, I was deep in thought about the last several days and what I had just experienced. I couldn't stop thinking about all these people I had met, who they were and things they said. I doubt I'll ever meet a more passionate group of people about the Australian bush than I did on this trek. Our last night together drew quite a party. They came in droves. But it wasn't all just boot, scootin', tootin', shootin', drink and rum by the fire. They talked all night on their love of horses and the lockouts of the Kosciuszko National Park. I watched Dick and Donna speak with the group about their late fathers and the legacy that they left. Some honour their past and never let it go. Some will say, hey, move on. It's history. Well, I truly believe that that is to the contrary. We are here because of our past. Our forefathers that once lived, it was their time. And soon enough, our time will come too. All of us will become like them. Somebody's ancestors. The further back you look, the further forward you are likely to see. Whilst a man devises his own future, he also inherits his past. Every man is his own ancestor. You are here because of them. Let's be grateful, and let's never forget where we came from. Cheers, mate.
All the very best. Here's to the high country.
Yes.